The process of creating cultural spaces for Indigenous communities is filled with challenges, both political and architectural. Through this investigative research, we will address and critique the design and making of international Indigenous cultural spaces. We will examine the value of community participation, the challenges of competing stakeholders, and the importance of establishing the connection with community. Architect Yasmeen Lari designed the Women's Centre in Darya, funded by an NGO called the Heritage Foundation of Pakistan. The program and methodology is centered around women being their own agents and program leaders, and includes sustainable building techniques. The challenges Lari faced during the project included community acceptance, understanding local materiality and surrounding socio-economic context, and navigating the role of the architect in both the design and making stages.
And what it's done is for me to understand what is needed for the people to be able to have safe structures and how they can build them themselves. So it's all a participatory approach that has happened.
The Women's Centre is a bamboo structure, which is the most common local structural system. However, existing buildings are unmaintained and in need of adaptation techniques to assist in the surviving future climatic changes such as flash flooding. Lari implemented an intervention, further developing on traditional techniques, to create a trussed bamboo system that would withstand floods and winds. Built on bamboo stilts to protect from flooding, the undercroft is used as a classroom or store when not inundated with water, and as a wide veranda offers shade from the sun. The success of this project demonstrates how during the pre-design process there was an importance placed on the community establishing a sense of pride and self-sufficiency around the centre. Implementing a participatory design approach, Lari demonstrated how the role of the architect is not only to design and build, but to advocate through listening and facilitating. The Women's Centre provides a space for women to socialise and participate in locally driven enterprises. One enterprise was the training and rebuilding of limestone stoves for the home, many of which were destroyed in the 2015 earthquake.
Cultural centres often have contrasting stakeholders to consider, from locals to governments and tourists. Navigating these competing agendas is an ongoing architectural and non-architectural challenge. However, Indigenous culture should not always be approached as or assumed to be an exhibition for visiting users. The project brief should be clear about who the building is really for, as to avoid the preferencing of political interests whilst hiding under the guise of designing for everyday users. Much like Frank Gehry's Guggenheim, Renzo Piano's Jean-Marie Tjibaou Cultural Centre remains a controversial project, yet ultimately provides economic development through tourism. The term given to the outcome of such architect celebrity builds is the Bilbao effect. The objective of the building was to celebrate Noumean culture and traditional building techniques, but the only materials used were tree barks and corals for decoration. The timbers were imported from Africa, and the steel structure was prefabricated in France. The only attempt at integrating traditional architecture were the 3 Karnak houses constructed next to the modern interpretations. It appears to be only at these houses where genuine cultural events are held, indicating that this major architectural project has done little to contribute to the lives of local everyday users. Similar to Greg Burgess's Uluru Kata-Tjuta Cultural Centre, the ambitions for this project may have been just too aspirational in aiming to bridge a gap between the government and the local communities. Whilst unsuccessful in this regard, the architecture itself is an impressive response to a tumultuous brief. The building's namesake, leader of the Karnak independence movement, approved of the project objectives and location, suggesting that the conceptual ideas were representative of something the community would have appreciated. Perhaps closer collaboration with the Karnak people would have resulted in a more understated traditional building, better accommodating of the local customs rather than giving preference to tourism.
The design and making of cultural centres is challenging because architects must engage in and respond to the political and social context that sits outside of the building. Our research demonstrates that projects which were both positively received and continually used by their communities have achieved a balance of functional space, local accessibility, and fulfilment of users' needs. The Rong Cultural Centre in Iran by Zav Architecture is a walkable urban space designed to bridge the gap between tourist attraction and local community hub. Through a series of workshops with locals, the architects came to understand the key objectives of the centre. The community expressed their desire for simple implementation, environmental sustainability, and self-sufficient structures. Although the centre was highly regarded by the architectural community, locals have described the project as a plundering on their island's natural resources. The architects perceived the use of Hormuz red soil as a gesture to protect this precious resource, but as a matter of tension in the community, the use of this red soil triggered some locals to set fire to parts of the building during construction. Whilst the architects described the consultation process as developing an overarching vision, it seems their approach has failed to understand local values around materiality. This architectural response is a reflection of how ineffectively this design team has understood the needs of the community and their cultural identity. Evidenced through the discrepancies in satisfaction between the architects and locals, it is clear that the connection formed through the consultation workshops has been misinterpreted. A core driver in successful cultural centres is interaction and engagement between the community and design team. This is exemplified by the project Thread, Artist Residency and Cultural Centre in the rural village of Sinthian, Senegal. Thread was headed by local leaders with Toshiko Mori architects working pro bono. The centre has been positively received by the community and is widely considered a success due to many factors. Significantly, this project was driven by prominent local leader Dr. Magwese, who maintained a position of responsibility and influence throughout the entire process, thereby providing locals with genuine representation and trust in the outcome. The project had the simple purpose of being a place of community gathering and to share art.
The original design of Thread was really based on its ability to respond to the way that the community would use it, as well as the way that the artist might use it.
By functionally becoming a water source, the building is vital to the continuous thriving of the community and ensures its use at all times, regardless of events.
In this project, I was very careful to use local material.
Materials used include compressed earth blocks, bamboo framework, thatch roofing, and recycled mosaic tiling, all constructed by locals and utilising their local techniques. Thread is an example of how a strong connection between the designers and the end users ensures a building which manifests genuine understanding of the local culture and how such a building responds to their needs and integrates into their lives.
Architecture has the potential to be a catalyst for societal change and physically represent such movements. However, the complexity of political problems cannot always be solved through architectural solutions alone. Successful cultural centres allow for local participation, understand the needs of key stakeholders, and connect with the community's cultural identity through collaboration to develop spaces that encourage pride and achieve self-sufficiency.